Lou Perman. How to describe Lou? He was in every way a gentleman, the way your grandfather might have been a gentleman. He was quiet at church for the most part, very dignified. Everybody loved him. He was on the trustees of our church at Tabernacle Church. I think for as long as I was there, which is probably about 15 years, he was an advisor. And he's not the kind of person to probably run right up to a strange person and shake their hands enthusiastically. But he had a kindness that went deep, and he was real. He loved to tell stories, too. He had a way of telling a story that at first didn't make sense to me. Most people go chronologically in a story, A, B, C, or whatever. And Lou would start out at some point that he got from some place and ramble on for about 30 seconds until I figured out what he's saying. And then after the story was done, I understood it all perfectly because he's a really good storyteller and fun. He liked to tease, he teased me, he teased a lot of people, and he simply enjoyed, I think, life itself. To the degree of his work at the council and his work with people, I'm not as familiar as maybe most of you are or some of you are. But the kindness he had in our church, I'm sure, was transported to the work that he did for people, especially when the meals were served around this whole county. He had a big invisible role in that. I know also that he was very much concerned about Meals on Wheels and would do everything he could do, regardless the weather, regardless how many people needed the meal, to be sure that that meal, that special meal, was delivered. And I can picture him going to the home of somebody who was going to have the meal, and I can imagine, because of his grace and because of his quiet and very wonderful humility, that everyone greeted him and everyone loved him because he's Lou.
Lou Perman was a role model for me. I had known him since my teenage years, and he always came across as a true Christian gentleman. He devoted a lot of time to the Council of Churches and to our church, and I think his loves in order of priority were his wife Eleanor, our church and the council, and hockey. He was a big hockey fan. Now, Eleanor might say I had those things in the wrong order, but I think most people would agree I'm correct. And Eleanor and Lou both had a spirit of service, not for any recognition you would get, but just because it was the right thing to do. And they devoted an awful lot of time to both our church and to the Council of Churches. Lou was also a good sport. He was asked a few years ago to perform a part in one of the skits that was associated with our cabaret performance. And Lou did a terrific job, got a lot of laughs from playing the role. I think it was Little Red Riding Hood, and was asked to do similar roles later on because he was so well received. I think Lou, both in terms of people he knew through work and through volunteer service, was regarded as a real gentleman. No varnish. He was straightforward, and I think that's something we all aspire to do, but maybe don't do quite as well as Lou does. So I had him in high esteem, and I think everybody in our church did, and he's a real loss for the council and for us.
Lou used to work for NYSEG, and one of the concerns that NYSEG people have is that during the winter some of the limbs from trees would fall down. Lou happened to notice on his way home there was a particularly big limb on a tree that looked pretty fragile and might come down during the upcoming snowstorm. He went to the person who's in charge of tree limbs and said to him, "Be careful, this one limb is probably going to fall down during the next snowstorm." Well, lo and behold, the man didn't think it would and decided not to do anything about it. And that weekend the snow came, and sure enough, the limb fell and the electrical power went out for hours. Next Monday, when everyone was back at their office again, Lou walked by the man in charge of limbs and didn't say anything, and neither did the other fella. And that's the end of the story. And the point being that if it had been myself who'd been correct, I'd have made quite a scene about it. But that was Lou. I asked Lou, what happened? There's nothing. What'd you say to him? Nothing. Sometimes you can learn, I think, a lot from a person about what they don't say or get deeply angry about. That was Lou.